Welcome to the 9th Annual Women's Hemispheric Network Conference. We are thrilled to have a fantastic group of speakers from across the region ready to share their stories with you. Before introducing our first speakers and talking a little bit about our Women's Hemispheric Network, I'd like to thank our Women's Hemispheric Network lead sponsor, Goldman Sachs, and our corporate sponsors, American Tower, AstraZeneca, Matos Filho, and Medtronic, for their continued support of professional women and this very important initiative. Your work makes this work possible. Now, the Women's Hemispheric Network started about 9 years ago, and we launched it with Michelle Bachelet, who is now the head of the Human Rights Commission in Geneva. And since then, every year in New York and in Miami and in 2 or 3 places across the hemisphere, we try to bring women together and men to talk about their stories, to talk about their challenges, and to build their networks. This is really important to us as an institution, and it's particularly important to me personally and to all of the people that work at the Americas Society. Sadly, this year, because of COVID, we can't have this program in person, but the good news is we have more people online than we've ever had attend one of our conferences. My team tells me that we have over 500 people online to listen to this very important program. So please enjoy today and tomorrow. I also want to talk a little bit about America's Quarterly. As some of you may know, America's Quarterly is our policy magazine. And this edition, it comes out 4 times a year, is about gender parity. It came out today. It is fabulous. And you can get it online, or we can actually send you a copy if you'd like to receive a copy. The cover is the first Vice President of Color of Costa Rica. And it's got lots of fun and interesting stories for you to read, including one that I wrote. So finally, before I introduce our keynote speaker, I'd also like to thank our entire team. We have an amazing team that put this together. Randy Melcy, who will really be today's MC, Natalia Williamson, Cara Caponi, and many others, Maria Lourdes Gallo from Miami, and a whole group of other people that have supported this initiative, believe in this initiative, and work to make this conference the best ever. So it is now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Lori Lee, who will be interviewed by Michael Stott. Lori is the CEO of AT&T Latin America and serves as Global Marketing Officer for AT&T. And my dear friend Michael is the Latin American editor for the Financial Times. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Michael. And thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for joining us tomorrow. And we hope you enjoy the conference.
Thank you, Susan, so much for the invitation to join this fantastic conference. And let me just say what a pleasure it is to be here with you and to have the opportunity to speak to Lori about what's been an extraordinary career, an extraordinary professional example, I think, for many people. Lori, thank you for joining me.
Be here, and I'm looking forward to our conversation, and it's great to be with everyone who's joining us virtually. I know all of us would prefer to be in person, but we love technology at AT&T, and we're putting it to good use.
Thank you, Lori. Well, obviously, this has been an extraordinarily challenging year for leaders with the virus, the coronavirus challenge. It's meant challenges on many fronts and many levels. I think we have to start there, don't we, if we're talking about resilience in a difficult environment. So what would you highlight as the biggest single challenge the virus has given you in your role as a senior leader at AT&T this year?
Well, I would say probably the biggest challenge is to just be as agile and adaptable as you can be and doing it as quickly as you can. And that's something that, we pride ourselves on at AT&T. When we have any kind of crisis, we view ourselves as people who run to that crisis. While we never want to see them, we know how much that our, infrastructure enables communication, and that is critical in any crisis. And this pandemic has been no different. And so I think the biggest challenge for us was to make sure that we responded as quickly as we could. We had to adapt processes because we knew not only did we have to shift our workforce, but all the work that our workforce was handling was so critical to everyone on this conference and to everyone, frankly, in the environment, whether they were trying to continue commerce, whether they too were trying to move employees to home work locations, whether they were trying to educate children from home, doing, telehealth. I mean, we just knew how critical that infrastructure was. So I think the biggest challenge was to just be as adaptable and agile as we could with a sense of urgency, knowing how critical, our response would be not only to our employees, but frankly to all of our customers and many around the world.
Yes, indeed. And running towards a crisis, it sounds a bit like journalists. We do that as well. So you mentioned the enormous responsibility that AT&T has in a crisis situation like this. I mean, crises also mean opportunities, don't they? So what were some of the opportunities you saw with the crisis?
Well, I think, in any of these things, you always learn something, and those turn out to be great opportunities. And there's a number of them that we have seen. I mean, one, I think you're always appreciative and grateful and admire the resilience of our employees and how they do exactly that, Michael. They were essential workers, and we did everything we could to give them the appropriate safety protocols. And every day they were in the field helping our customers. And just, to see that, I don't want to say it's a surprise because, as I said, we that's the kind of people we have. But I think just to see that first and foremost is just a reminder of, how our people rise up. I also think we experienced, and I'm sure many of the attendees have experienced, that we found we could do things that maybe we weren't sure we could do before, and have actually found, some improved process and some improved protocols as a result of it. One example, in our business in Latin America, we have numerous places where we have call centers, and we had typically, not had those folks working from home. We had centers where they would come to the office every day. And, out of necessity, we immediately, within a week's time, moved them all to take calls and use technology and work from home. And we have experienced that has been a really terrific thing. It has been great for our employee engagement. It has been great for our customer service. It's been great for our productivity. It's protected people. And so we've kind of learned, that's something that we want to keep when the pandemic does clear, because we think that's the best practice and is great for our employees. So that's just one example. And I think in all these things, you really find hidden jewels, frankly, that you want to hold on to.
Well, you mentioned there the inspiration that comes from people doing things that they didn't know they could do in a tough situation. I mean, you've had an extraordinary career yourself, and I'd like to turn the clock back a little bit to some of the earlier days of that. And I think in a commencement address last year to your old university, Washington, you described yourself in your student days as a small-town Springfield, Missouri woman who aspired to join a Big Six accounting firm. Now you're ranked one of Fortune's most powerful women in business. What happened?
Well, I would say that I was very blessed with a lot of opportunity and a lot of individuals and leaders who gave me those opportunities and helped mentor me and bring me along. And I was, and I am grateful for those. And I just worked hard every day and loved what I did. And I was blessed also to be given different types of opportunities, everything from finance to strategy to operations to marketing, now to Latin America. And I just find that really fulfilling. I love my company. I love what I do. I love to help people. And that's landed me, frankly, Michael, with where I am today. And I am eternally grateful.
And what do you think, who do you think were the most important influences on you in terms of lessons of leadership?
Well, I would say that certainly starts with my grandmother, and followed quickly by my father. Again, my whole family was completely supportive, but those two individuals stuck out. My grandmother always told me that I could do anything I set my heart to, and my dad taught me the value of hard work and taking initiative. Both of them were extremely influential in making sure I'm the first in my family to go to college. That was critically important to them, and I think that provided the right foundation. And then, you know, I've had so many leaders at AT&T in particular and the other companies that I've worked for who just, you know, took an extra moment or made sure that they gave me some advice. And those are numerous, but I would remiss if I didn't mention our current chairman of the board and recently retired CEO, Randall Stevenson. I've worked with him in some capacity for 22 years at AT&T, and he is a tremendous leader, and I've learned so much from him, and I'm very grateful for the opportunities that he's given me.
And Laurie, you were building your career at a time when women faced a lot of barriers to professional success, and I think you said sometimes you were the only woman at the table. How did you deal with those hurdles?
Well, first of all, you know, you try to never view that situation as being the only. I mean, it certainly is the reality, but I always faced it as I was one of many business people at the table trying to solve a business problem, help achieve business objectives, and helping develop our talent. And so I never approached it or tried not to approach it to the best of my ability to ever feel like the only. You know, I was just a business person there putting my best skills forward to solve those problems. Now, that being said, yeah, you look around and you're the only. And then what you do is you realize, what can I do to make sure that I pull others along so they're in the room with me, which has really led to, you know, a career-long emphasis for me in mentoring and advocacy for all talented individuals. But I have to tell you, Michael, I have a soft spot for helping women. And so people who know me will often hear me say, you know, while I had a hand up, I tried to keep a hand back to help pull up the next generation. And so I think that's how I channeled anytime I sensed there weren't enough of a group in the room to channel that to what could I do to make a difference in that? And that's been positive, rewarding, and every day I try to make a difference in that area.
Now, in Latin America, the area that you're responsible for, there's a wide variety, shall we say, in the situation of professional women across the continent. How do you handle that challenge that maybe in some of those countries the culture is much less supportive to professional women than in others?
Yeah, it's a good question, Michael. You know, I would say that I have been fortunate for the most part to have been very accepted in my role in LATAM. Certainly there's always, you know, an encounter here or there that you wish were a little bit different, but I've just, you know, I'm a business person, as I said, showing up to solve a business problem, and in many cases try to bring connectivity and services that are valued to the constituents of many of our Latin American countries. And so that's what I focus on. And we're very proud of the reputation that we have, both at AT&T, but in particular, you know, if you look at our business in Latin America, it's $7 billion. It serves 30 million customers, and it's run by 3 women. And I'm really proud of that. And so we just kind of try to lead by example, and we're having a great time, and hopefully it does set an example for others to follow.
That's remarkable. And as well as running a $7 billion business in Latin America, you've also got a global marketing role. How do you juggle those 2 portfolios?
Well, I do. No day looks the same. Day to day, it can be very different. But I have my background in finance, and I got a chance to be in operations, and I fell in love with operations. And then in the middle of one of those roles, I was asked by, at the time, our CEO and now chairman to step aside from operations and be the global marketing officer. And so I did that, and I found that I really enjoyed that. I love building our brand. I love storytelling about our brand. I love, being a brand ambassador for everything that AT&T does. And then, but as much as I loved it, I'm kind of an operations person at heart. I'm not shy to say that. And so about 3 years ago, we reorganized. We went to more of a business unit approach, and much of the day-to-day marketing got pushed to the individual business units. And so they dotted line to me outside the global marketing initiatives. And that just frankly freed up some time for me. And the company was kind enough to honor my love of operations and asked me if I would consider doing both roles. And I gladly accepted. Because I love it. I love having a foot in both sides. I am an operations leader. I run a staff function. And, I've done both independently. And I think just having the ability to be in both areas at the same time gives me a unique perspective. And I think it helps me solve problems. And I think it helps me advise my colleagues on the best way to tackle the objectives we have here at AT&T. So it's a different combination, but I feel really blessed to have it.
And if just turning to that global marketing role, AT&T's used this character Lily in TV ads for a number of years, hasn't it? And for those in the who've tuned in who haven't seen the ads, Lily plays a sort of a young, helpful woman who assists customers in solving problems by offering solutions, shall we say. Now, these ads had some unexpected consequences, didn't they, on the social media world? And I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about those and about what you learned from that experience.
Yeah, so actually, the ads that Lily, that is our spokesperson, the ads themselves that Lily played, they didn't drive specific controversy, but some of the personal posts that the actress who plays Lily, for whatever reason, got some attention. And frankly, it was unfortunate because it wasn't well-intended attention. And so, look, I think anytime you see a situation like this, your company has to really call on its values on what to do. And in our case, I'm proud to work for a company that supports freedom of speech, but I'm also very proud to work for a company who, solicits at all times respect for others and to always do the right thing. And so when we saw the actress who plays Lily, come under some terrible comments on social media, and she was brave enough to go on one of the social platforms in a live setting and talk about this, we just decided that the right thing was to stand up for her and to take a stand. And so we did that because, everyone should have the right to voice their opinion, but not when it crosses or gets close to the line of being cyberbullying. That's just not the way to use our technology. And so, we felt the need to take a stand and support her. And we're very glad that we did. And she's a great ambassador, and everybody loves Lily because she takes great care of our customers.
That's great. That's fantastic. I think another thing you faced in your career along the way was a situation that many professional women face, which is that your husband had a job offer which involved the family moving a long way and you changing your job. Can you tell us a bit about how you cope with that challenge?
Yeah, so I think anyone who comes from kind of a two-career family, whatever that looks like, it's a constant trade-off between doing the right thing for your family unit versus each of your individual careers. And my husband and I were no different. And we faced this situation actually a number of times. And I would just tell you that in some cases, we followed his work, and in some cases, we followed my work. And we just always did what felt to be the best thing for our family. And, you know, I think these are very tough choices, particularly for women, but for men as well, that when they come to a point in their career and they need to make a trade-off, how do they evaluate that? And I get asked that question a lot, like, how did you know the right thing to do? And, you know, Michael, there's no right answer that I could generically give this group. What I can tell anybody who asks me that question is, you need to be completely genuine and authentic to who you are and what is right for your family. So being very centered about knowing your values and the trade-offs you want to make, and then following that. And if that means taking this job, go for it. If it means not taking that job and doing this, then go for that. And if you follow what's genuine to your core values, you're going to be just fine. And I will also just say, in all of these trade-offs that my husband and I and our family have made, I have always benefited the most from when I took the biggest risk. And I feel fortunate about that, but there's a lot of times, too many to go through in this call, where I wasn't sure about something and maybe it seemed like a step back. But every time I followed it, because I had trusted advisors who gave me good advice about the things opportunities I might not be seeing, I listened to them. And when I took them, that risk paid off. And whether it was I learned that I love operations, happened in one experience. In every experience, my family unit grew closer. One of my moves, my second son, who it took 9 years for us to be able to have a second child. He was less than a year old. And when I was asked to move, I'm like, how could I possibly do that? And I'm sure many today face the same struggles. My message is our family unit grew so strong as a result of that. And my kids would tell you today, and they're older now, they're 26 and 17, that they feel very resilient and they're not uncomfortable going into any place because we've moved a lot, and they're very comfortable, you know, fitting into new situations. So, you know, it's a balancing act, but just be true to what's right for you and your family. There's no set answer.
And you talk a lot about values, Laurie. Can you tell us a little bit more about your values and how they've influenced your professional life?
Sure. Well, I think first and foremost, you know, integrity and doing what's right is really, really important to me. Secondly, I've always tried to be authentic. And sometimes I think all of us come into situations where maybe we feel like we need to be a little different. And of course, we need to adjust the audience and do some things. But I've always tried to really live with the value of I need to be my authentic self, because then that brings out the best in me. I've always tried to care for people, being a servant-based leader and helping people, whether that's helping them solve the problems that we have in our business or helping them with something that's they're weighing on a personal level. I mean, I love to work with people and help them. And so those are values that have been with me from the very beginning. And I find the more that I kind of make sure my work involves those to some degree, you know, the more fulfilled I feel every day.
What surprised you most about your career?
What surprised me the most about my career? Maybe I would just say sitting here today. I don't think I ever said, you know, on this date, I want to be this. I never got too far ahead in my career planning. That doesn't mean I didn't always know I wanted to have a career, because I did. I always knew I wanted to be successful. I always knew I wanted to strive to be better, and I wanted the next challenge. I did all those things. but I never sat back and said, okay, do I expect to be a leader in a Fortune 10 company? I didn't do that. And frankly, when I mentor people, I ask them not to do that, because sometimes I find people come in and they have this view about where they see themselves, and there's this really tight timeline. And the one thing I tell them is, whatever timeline you have, that won't be the timeline that happens for your career. So instead, I just tell them, look, do your absolute best work every day. Be open to new challenges and take risk. Take smart risks, but take risk. And the third thing I tell them is, have a network of people around you that coach you and give you different perspectives about, what the risk is, or what your opportunity should be, or when you really did a great job on a project, or more importantly, maybe when you kind of could have done something a little bit better. That's what I tell people to focus on. That's what I've done. And, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the opportunities that's presented me.
Do you think the environment for professional women in Latin America has got easier over the past 10, 20 years? And what changes have you seen in the region?
Well, I've been directly involved in LATAM for the past 3 years. So I will say that my experience over that time has certainly been moving in the right direction. And I suspect if I were to look at the stats and think about where we've come, I think that's absolutely true over the last 20 years. That being said, I think we have a long ways to go. And I think all of us have a responsibility to continue to push programs that advance women, and I think as women too, we all have to look at, we're very capable, a lot of opportunities, and we shouldn't, hold ourselves back in any way. And so I think there's a couple of opportunities there, both from the environment and the corporations, and then also just as individuals ourselves, we should lean into these opportunities and pursue them.
Right. And what do you think organizations can do to create better support and better opportunities for professional women?
Well, I think I would say that you just need to evaluate, what does your corporation's program look like as it pertains to the advancement of women? And I think it starts with awareness. Like, what are your programs? Are you aware of what you're doing? Are you aware of maybe best practices that you're not following? And make sure that you put those in place. And the second thing I think is development. What are you doing once you're aware of where you are? What are you doing to develop skill sets? And making sure that as people rise up in the organization, they're getting the right exposures. And do you have development programs? And are you assigning people mentors? I think that's really, really important. And the last thing I would say is, I think you have to make sure, I think companies and individuals as leaders in those companies, you have to make sure that you give people, you're an advocate for them. And so what I mean by that is, obviously you mentor, obviously you advocate for them, but it's also something that I refer to, what do you do to get people in the room as their sponsor, as their advocate? And not when they get the job, but expose them to how business decisions are made, expose them to critical executive meetings, and make sure that they have a chance to absorb and understand before they're actually given the direct responsibility, because that will help prepare them. So awareness, development, advocacy. I think we all can play a role, and if we do those things, it'll advance the opportunities that women have.
Do you think quotas are part of the answer or not?
I don't believe that quotas are part of the answer. I do believe in goals. I do believe in objectives, but I'm not necessarily set on quotas. I think we all have work to do, and we have to build those benches to ever move the numbers to where they need to be. But I would focus more on, what are you doing with your programs than I would a set quota.
Right. And look, I know we're getting to the end now, running out of time, and you've shared in the session many pieces of advice with us. But if you were just picking out one or two things as key pieces of advice for young professional women in the Americas about building their careers today and today's environment, what would you sort of single out as the key things for them to think about?
Be your authentic self, because whatever it is, it's amazing and it's good enough. And know what matters to you and go pursue it relentlessly, because you have all the opportunities in the world. Don't try to take someone else's path. Don't let someone else guide you about what is right or wrong. Know yourself, know what matters, and hold to that at all times.
Laurie, thank you so much for sharing all of those experiences with us. I think the audience will have really enjoyed that very much. So thank you so much. And I'd like to pass over now to Randy Meltzy.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.